Welcome back to another episode of For All Stages and Ages. I am joined today by Mia Dixon. She is the founder of Celebrate Sleep with Mia. She is a baby sleep training expert, and she is here to share some of her expertise with our parents on our parenting support community and on the podcast today. So lovely to have you on, Mia. Thank you very much for joining us.
No, thank you so much for having me. Love being here.
It's an absolute pleasure having you on. So how did you get started in sleep training, Mia? Can you kind of share a little bit about your story and how you kind of got started in that arena?
So before I became a mum, I feel like you sort of almost lose a part of yourself when you become a mum, but I was a primary school teacher, and then I became a mum for the first time. And it was all fine. Like, we were during COVID and you were just kind of figuring it all out. But my daughter slept. She slept beautifully. She was one of, I think it's about 70% of children who kind of start sleeping through the night around 6 months. So she was one. So I was like, yes, I'm winning at this mum game. You know, I know what I'm doing. Then my son came, my youngest came about 22 months after her. And I was like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing. They are so different, like personality wise, and their sleep needs and their needs on how they learn things was so different. And you're sort of like, right, what do I do? So everything I did for her, I did with him, but nothing was working. And it kind of got to the point where I was at breaking point. I was like, I just can't. I'm just surviving. I'm looking after a toddler and a baby. Just like, there's just survival mode. I'm just like the zombie mom. I'm not enjoying this. I don't know what to do. And then you take to Google or Instagram, and then you just sort of start going deep diving into the world of sleep. And that's when I came across this baby and toddler sleep consultant. And I was like, I really like the sound of this. The more I sort of researched it, I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to help mums sort of demystify sleep and help support them with their little one's sleep. So it's thanks to Ollie, my youngest, that I'm a sleep consultant now, because of him, I have gone into this. And again, like, because of him, I've furthered my training and sort of doing a different course, because the more traditional sleep training methods, they worked the first time around with him, but then he hit the 2.5-year sleep regression, and nothing I had in my toolkit was working. And I was like, well, what do I do now? And again, you go back to Google, and that's when I found this approach, or this sleep course, that was more empowering mums to follow their intuition, because everything I was doing wasn't feeling right. I was like, this doesn't feel right. It's not helping him. It's making things worse. And then, so now I've sort of changed track a bit, and a far more gentle, loving methods. And they've worked. You know, with him, he's now sleeping through the night. His needs are being met. And it's so freeing being able to help mums in a way that is non-judgmental. So anything that you have done or you do with your child, you're doing because you love them and you're doing the best for them. So I'm really enjoying the new phase of my sort of sleep consultancy journey, and just helping mums in that non-judgmental way, supporting them with their little one's sleep and taking away all the anxiety and overwhelm with it.
Yeah, it can be, especially as first-time parents. I mean, it doesn't get any easier when you've had more, but obviously you do have, like you say, with your first, she slept through, you know, you didn't have much of an issue with her. So, but then your second one comes along and kind of, you know, breaks all those rules and kind of goes, no, I'm not sleeping. I don't want to sleep, and kind of creates a new sort of thing. So it's obviously for first-time parents, it's very, very daunting, but you know, even 2, 3, 4 children down the line, they're all different. They all have their own individual sleep patterns, and it doesn't really matter what you do. So with regards to sleep training, I suppose, there are obviously many, many different styles of sleep training. How do you decide each person or each parent should do for their children? Is one particular style going to be best for them? How do you sort of incorporate finding which is going to work for them, or which do you recommend?
So I don't like cry it out, and I wouldn't recommend cry it out, or the controlled crying, the further method. I think those are the traditional ways that can work for some children. So I will never, you know, you're your child's parent, you know them best. And when you look at your child's temperament, so Tracy Hogg did an incredible temperament test, which is what I do with, I ask the parents to fill that out. And then all the children sort of classifies into broad sort of temperament traits. So you have your angel babies, which are generally your really easygoing babies. They kind of, any routine you set them into, they will follow. they sort of really happy and just happy-go-lucky children. Then you've got your textbook, which again, you can kind of have, if you wanted to, you could do the verb or cry it out with them, and they would generally just fall into place with it. So your general sleep advice out there are usually aimed at your textbook babies or those angel babies that it just, you do it and they follow the normal in quotation marks, like napping schedules that you have that are out there and all of that. And then you have your sensitive temperament type. And these are the children who are really in tune with how their body feels. And so they feel everything, you know, when they go through teething, developmental leaps, mental leaps, they kind of really feel it and it can really impact them. So loud noises or sensitive to like light and stuff. And these are your little ones who tend to, you can't knock them on the go because they need like pitch black room, white noise, you know, not a sound, nothing. And they need a gentle, loving method. So you can do it in a really slow way to help support them. And it's all about fostering those independent sleeps. So like helping them learn how to self-settle by themselves. And then you've got your spirited temperament. And these are the kids who are your lively action ones. They just don't sit still and they're always on the go. And you then need to find a method and stuff that kind of helps, I don't want to say coerce them into sleeping, but you almost have to, like, you're forcing them to sleep because their bodies are just so active that they just don't want to stop. So you're looking at ways you can help support them calm their bodies down. And a lot of time this could be sensory input. So looking at like the proprioception, like those deep, you know, that deep pressure that you give them and just really help bringing them down. And I've got quite a few different sort of approaches that I use that will always mean you're meeting your child's needs. So we never want to be like, yeah, we'll just leave them to figure it out by themselves. You know, let them cry and they'll get there. So I don't advocate that because for me, it just doesn't. Why are you going to let your child cry when they need you? Yes, it could be really frustrating. And it is hard being a parent. Like there's no way of sugarcoating this thing. And particularly if you've got a child that doesn't sleep, you are pulling your hair out because you're exhausted and you just don't know what to do. So the way when we work together, it's just looking at what their temperament type is, and then looking at this sort of the different sleep approaches I have in my bike toolkit, and then which one will best support them. And every one of them is really slow. So there's no like big surprise, you're going to fall asleep this way now. It's sort of really gentle. And the thing that I love the most is that we only start at bedtimes. So for most of them, you start at bedtimes, and then for the nighttime responses, you can still respond in your own way. And then you just slowly support them. So it's not like a big change all at once. I think it's great because if you think about how we sort of change our routines and our habits, it's not all at one go. You're not going to be like, right, I'm going to run the marathon today. It's like, well, right, I would like to run the marathon. What steps, what changes do I need to make in my behavior and my habits in order for me to achieve that goal? So we've got like the overall goal of sleep, but now we're doing small little changes to help support the new habits being formed and sort of that independent sleep being fostered. And it's also all child-led and parent-led. So I really listen to my mums and I really want them to listen to their instincts and their intuition. And if they say to me, this is not going to work, be like, right, fine, that's okay. Let's try this instead. So it's a real team, like a team effort, because yes, I am the expert on sleep and I know how to get your child sleeping, but you're the expert on your child. So I'm not going to be there saying, well, this is the only way of doing it, because that's not right and that's not true. And if you have a sleep consultant, and I've worked with parents who've had horrendous experience with sleep consultants who've said, right, this is the only way to do it, and that's it. I'm like, run a mile. You know, if it doesn't feel right to you, run, because there are so many different ways, but also unique and special. So why would you just sort of like dump them in a box and just be like, right, this is how we're going to do it one way and one way only?
Yeah, my little boy is 4.5 now, but we really struggled sleep wise with him when he was born. He would only contact sleep on me or his dad. We got a bassinet. We got like a Moses basket for when he was first brought home from the hospital. Then we realised that probably wasn't that comfy, so we changed the Moses basket. We put him in we brought one of the snuzz pod kind of co-sleeping beds that are safe they sort of attach on the side of the bed, and that was brilliant. But he still wouldn't sleep in that. And it was only, I think, for the first maybe 3 or 4 months that he would only ever sleep on me or his dad. So we had to tag team sleep throughout the night. I would do a couple of hours with him sleeping on me while I sat up and read a book or played on my phone or whatever.
Yeah.
His dad would have a sleep, and then we'd swap in the middle of the night. So I would go and have a sleep, and his dad would get up, and it was a nightmare. And even now, he's 4.5. He sleeps all the way through now, but even still, when we take him to bed, he's never had a night where we've done the cry it out thing. I couldn't do it. So now, being 4.5, every night we go, he'll have his bath, his book, we read a book every night, and then I have to sit there and hold his hand until he falls asleep. And that's how we've done it for 4.5 years. Sometimes he'll go to sleep in with a couple of minutes, sometimes it can be half an hour, sometimes it can be 45 minutes. It works for us. It's not probably the best routine, but it's the way that we get him to go to sleep. So, like you say, parents do have to just try and find what works for them, and that was what sort of worked for us. So can you share a few sort of techniques that have been maybe particularly effective in sort of helping parents and children establish better sleep routines? I know you mentioned about like having, pitch black rooms and sleep machines and things like that. Do you recommend them, or can they be a bit of a hindrance sometimes with sleep?
So I think, again, it depends on your little one, but I always recommend blackout blinds, because what happens is when you've got the natural light, that stops your melatonin production, and that's the hormone that helps initiate sleep. So that works along with your circadian rhythm, so your body clock. And as we get older, so you're actually not born with a body clock. So therefore, that's why newborn sleep is so all over the place. So you think about them, these poor kids, they've come from your uterus, your womb, they've been so comfortable, they're the right temperature, they've never felt a wet or dirty nappy, they've never had to be hungry. And then all of a sudden they come into the world and it's like, bam, hello world. Now I have all these different sensations, and it's really hard because they're trying to get used to the new world. You're trying to get used to learn and figure out who your little one is. So a lot of newborn sleep is very disorganized, and it is hard. And it's like when you were talking about the contact napping when he was little, I was like, that's perfect. That worked for you. That's fine. Why would you want to change something? Like newborns, they feel safest when they're close to us, and they can feel regulated when they're close to us because they can't do that self-soothing by themselves. That's something that babies and children learn through us doing it for them. So the newborn sleep is a really hard phase, and just sort of one being prepared. Like, make sure you read up. Like when you're pregnant, read up on sleep. Make sure you're sort of aware of sleep expectations, because I think a lot of time parents come in with these really unrealistic expectations that their children are going to sleep through the night from the get-go and it'll be fine. And not all kids are like that, and that's normal. So your child isn't broken. You are not doing anything wrong if they're not sleeping. But there are things we can do to really help support their sleep. And having a room, a sleep space that they feel comfortable and safe in. So yes, having a dark blackout blinds, which now in the winter doesn't really matter because it's just like dark all the time in the UK. But particularly the summer months, having blackout blinds to really sort of help. And that's also another signal for your little one that now it's bedtime, we're going to sleep. And so having those cues, so having a really good bedtime routine is key, and having a consistent bedtime routine. And that's the only place you need to start, really. That's the most important thing to get right is, are they safe and happy and feel sort of content playing in their room by themselves? And do they have a good bedtime routine that is helping meet their connection need to us and filling up their cup so that they can sort of bridge that separation between going to bed and waking up in the morning? Because if you think for a little one, it's a long time to not be with your parents. So it can be really scary. So when you were saying with your son, you have the bath, reading. I'm a big advocate for reading. I think that's the best gift we can give our children, is read to them. And we started reading to our little ones when they were really young. And now my son is 2.5. He's 3 next week. He loves just looking through a book. He'll sit there by himself looking through a book. So that's a really lovely, calming, connecting activity you can do with them, so they can sort of be snuggled in with you. You could read this book, and then with you holding his hand, that's what he needs in order to fall asleep. And the fact that he goes through the night, I think that's amazing. I mean, we still stay with Ollie when he sleeps sometimes. So try to leave a bit earlier sometimes, but sometimes it's just not possible, and he needs us there to stay with him. But that changes day to day. So it's having that bedtime routine and a room that they feel safe in, that they want to be in. So if your little one doesn't like their room, spend time playing in their room. Make them want to go in there. Make it like, this is a really safe space to be. So don't use it as a punishment. Don't have any negative connotations to their bedroom at all, because that's their safe space. That's where they want to go and sleep. And then having a bedtime routine that sort of really helps wind them down. So what do they need? Some children need sensory activities. Some children are so wired and they find it so hard to regulate their little ones. So do you need to look to a routine that brings in those calming sensory activities to kind of help regulate their nervous system so they then ready for bed? And then looking at how you end off that routine, like is their cup filled? Do they feel loved and safe and secure to go to sleep? And that's where we'll start with anyone I work with, is the bedtime routine and that sleep space. That's the biggest focus first, because it's all about connecting. And doesn't matter, you can do any sleep learning approach in the book. If your child doesn't feel safe in their room, or their bedtime routine isn't working for them, you're going to have a battle on your hands, because it's just not going to happen. So that's why I would recommend starting with any parent that I work with.
Lovely. I think what you said about their bedroom is their safe space, and not using that as a punishment, or okay, go and have your time out in your bedroom. That was one of the things that we did with my son, is that we've never, I will send him to his room sometimes, but not in the form of a punishment. So if he is, for example, having a bit of a moment where I can see that he's getting to that level of, bordering on, you're not really listening, it's not going in, and I think we need to kind of bring you back down a level.
Yeah.
What I will say to him is, he's got a little tent in the living room that he can go and sit in. He's got some little books in there. He's got his teddies. And then obviously he's got his books and his bed and everything upstairs as well. So what I will say to him, if he does need that moment where he needs to go and re-ground himself, regroup himself, get himself together a little bit, I'll say to him, look, do you want to go and sit in your tent, or do you want to go to your bedroom and go and have a little bit of, 5 minutes up there? Just go. I don't take anything away from him. I don't take the toys out of there. He can play up there. He can go and read a book if he wants to. He can go and lie on his bed. He can sit in the tent if he wants to. So it's not a punishment, but what I am saying to him is, you can't be in this particular space at the moment because you are not regulated at the moment. You're not safe to be in this space, but you can go to your tent or your bedroom and you can be in that space where you are safe. And then when you're ready to come back down, and we can have a little chat about what was going on. So I've never made it a punishment, but like I say, there are ways of still utilising that space if you need it, but without making it a negative space as well.
And the way you're using it is amazing. So you're giving him the tools and showing him the tools he can use to help calm himself down. So you're being like, right, you can go into your tent or your room. And it's giving him that choice. And then those are going to be amazing lifelong skills that he can then learn. Be like, right, I can feel my body's getting dysregulated. I can feel my tummy's not feeling well. Like I'm getting hot. I need to move, because you're showing him. And I think a lot of time parents think that actually by the time they should be able to control their emotions. And that's so not true. Like, you are the adult. You're the one doing it. You should be doing it for them. You should be showing them how to regulate, which is really hard as an adult, because you're like, I'm barely functioning sometimes, like just trying to keep calm and not let because I think the way you were brought up really does impact how you parent, and letting all that sort of stuff come to the surface when you're trying to do it so differently. So I think it's great being able to give our kids the tools that they need in order to help them calm down, but you're still directing them at a young age. You're still doing it for them. So if they need a cuddle or whatever, you're there helping them while they're howling, because then they know that you are their safe space, that they can always come back to you, and you're giving, and like you were doing, you're giving him the tools that he can then use independently when he's ready.
Yeah. And one of the other things we found, sort of gone off the topic of the sleep bit, but with the sort of regulating them, one of the things that we found really works with my son, obviously it's not going to work with all children, but it does with Jacob, is that when he's getting to that point of, because sometimes when he's gone, I've missed it a little bit sometimes, and I've left it a little bit too long, and he's not in that frame of mind where he wants to go to his tent or his bedroom. He's kind of gone past that point of listening to me. He's kind of built himself up, and I've just missed it to kind of calm him down before he gets to that level. So when I have missed that point where, you know, I'll say to him, do you want to go to your tent or your bedroom? And it's like lights are on, but no one's home. He's not there. He's still doing whatever it was that I don't want him to do. What I say to him is, right, Jacob, and I'll get him to sort of stand in front of me. I sort of get his focus and I'll say, can you do your birthday candles? Can you blow out your candles for me? And it's taken us a while to get to that point where he knows what it is that I'm talking about. But basically all it is he puts his hands up in front of him and he will blow out each individual finger and he will go like this and he will do it 10 times. And if I still don't think he's quite, you know, getting to that calming down stage, I'll say, right, do your candles again for me, and he'll do it again. And sometimes he will do it really, really quickly and he'll go like this, but then he finds it funny. And because he's laughing, he's automatically bringing himself down. So I don't mind him doing that. I don't mind him doing the slow candles because that breathing is kind of calming him down. But then when he does it really, really quickly and he goes like this, he finds it funny and that kind of regulates him again and he brings himself down from there. And then that is when I will then say, right, dude, you know, I think, shall we go and sit in our tent or shall we go and sit in our bedroom? And he'll say yes. And then we'll sort of start the process again. But the candles really work for us, bringing him down when he was struggling. And a lot of the time that was around bedtime because he didn't want to go to bed. So yeah. And
it's like that. Yeah. And it's like finding these little things. Like there's some great, there's one OT on Instagram, Courtney English _OT, and she has incredible, like her all about bedtime sensory activities that you can do to help bring your little one down. And again, the breathing work, she does all the breathing work, and she's like, practice that during the day. So that candle breathing is amazing. You get loads of good like videos on YouTube, Mindful Kids, where they gives them the visual, like with the class I used to teach, because I did, it's also a primary school teacher. There's like a rainbow, so where you blow the colors of the rainbow. So again, it's just really lovely visuals for the kids to see, because then it's bringing them back into themselves. Because when they go into that red zone, when they all, and it's the same with us adults, we're all up here, like you're just reacting, you're not thinking through that emotional, your reason and logical brain shuts down. So you're just that emotional reacting brain. So it's like trying to bring your levels down again and trying to like ground yourself. And like stuff like that is great because it's making you come back into yourself and just being within the moment and not sort of all up here.
Yeah.
So it's great. And it's great to like kind of help the kids learn those things as well, which, and a lot of time it teaches you're learning as well, because you're like, oh, actually this I find is really calming. This is really helping me as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and like you say, you know, we do wrongly assume that a 4-year-old or, you know, even an 18-month-old or a 2-year-old can regulate their emotions. But like you say, I'm 36 and I still can't regulate my emotions. You know, only this morning I was on the way back from the school run and someone cut me off, and the profanities that came out of my mouth, you know, and I'm there banging on the steering, like, what are you doing? You know, that is not me being regulated. So how could I expect a 4-year-old or a 2-year-old to do that when we can't, you know, and I've got 30 plus years experience on a 4-year-old. So I think parents do need to have a bit of a reality check, I think, sometimes, and realize that actually that, you know, these are brand new people. They don't know how to do that. And I can't remember the actual age that their sort of regulating brain kind of function sort of kicks in, but I know it's like, I think it's like in their early 20s.
Your prefrontal cortex, which is where you do all the logical, all the like the proper thinking, is only like fully developed around about 26. So you're like, how are you expecting a 4-year-old? And like when children have tantrums, people are like, oh, they're being naughty, they're manipulating me. It's like, no, they're not. They're just so dysregulated. Like crying and sort of having that big tantrum is how they're trying to figure out how to deal with that. And we need to really step up and be like, right, I can see you are not okay. I can see you're upset, and like really validate those emotions and be like, right, sometimes tantrums are so bad that you just need to let them kind of calm down. They just need to get it out of their system. And then when they're ready to re-engage with you, be like, right, what do you need now? Do you need a cuddle? Do you need to go read a book? How can I help you? And then you also do all the talking and the teaching when they're not in those high states. Because if you think of like when you're angry, like this morning was a perfect example for me. I was tired. So Ollie had woken up a couple of times last night. He's got really blocked nose. So I wasn't fully rested, and like trying to get them out to nursery and like doing Ollie to nursery, B to the school. And I know like the traffic is awful. So I was getting worked up, like really. And I kept telling myself, don't, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And it just ended up me sort of exploding, B in tears, Ollie sort of in tears, me in tears. And I was like, oh my gosh, what have I just done? Yeah. And I'm like 36 and I can barely like, when you're not in the right frame of mind, it's so hard to bring yourself down. And I can see myself going, I can be like, right, what do I need to do? And then it's all about like, just owning your actions. So like B has had so many apologies from me, being like, I'm so sorry, B, I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't your fault. That's me. I'm tired. I need to learn how to like, maybe I could try humming next time. I've heard humming is really good to help calm me down. And then you model it for them. And it's just like everyone's human. So you're gonna mess up, and there's no perfect parent. Like there's no one's a perfect parent, because it's hard and you're constantly thinking of everything and worrying about everything. So it's just kind of giving them the same grace that you should be giving yourself, because everyone's still learning and you never stop learning. You're always going to learn something new. So just kind of going in with an open mind, being like, right, what can I learn today? How can I do better? Even if you mess up, it's fine. We're humans, and that's normal.
Yeah. But I think what you said there about apologizing as well is something I do with Jacob. If I've not, maintained my composure, and I've let myself get to that level, and I've kind of got myself triggered, and I found myself kind of losing it with him occasionally. Sometimes his favorite thing at the moment is he goes in the garden. When I tell him to come in, he will go and run around his trampoline, because he knows full well that I cannot get him. So he knows that if I go, I've either got to go on the trampoline, which I can't do, or I spend 20 minutes running around the trampoline. He knows full well that I cannot get him. So that at the moment is his favourite thing, and it does really push my buttons. And when I've let myself get to that point, and I'll shout at him, or I get a bit louder than I want to, I will always say to him when he comes in, I will say, Mummy, sorry, Mummy shouldn't have done that. Mummy shouldn't have said this. Mummy shouldn't have shouted. Mummy will do better next time. Mummy will try and do this next time. Obviously I'll still correct him as well. I'll say, but you were doing X, Y, Z as well, and that was why Mummy got upset. So I think it is important to apologise to them, because if they see us doing it, they're in turn more likely to register, actually, that's what I need to do as well. So like you say, it's still modelling that behaviour for them as to, we messed up, I'm owning it, I'm sorry, did a bad thing.
Yeah, and I think it teaches them another valuable skill in life, that everyone's going to mess up, everyone makes mistakes. So I've had to really learn to accept that I am going to make a mistake, and that's okay, because I always grew up thinking like adults just know everything and they don't make mistakes, and you become an adult and you're like, there was a lot of lying because we don't know everything. I barely have it together, and that's okay. It's just being like, I am sorry, hold your hands up. I've messed up. I didn't do it right. And that, I think that's also modeling to them that it's okay to make mistakes. You're not a bad person for making mistakes, and we can learn from those mistakes. So I think and I think you grow up a lot as a parent. When you become a parent for the first time, you sort of you have to do a lot of growing up yourself, and a lot of kind of readjusting your expectations and what you thought parenting would be like. And I think that's fine. I think as long as you're willing to accept your mistakes and improve on them. So it's like taking responsibility for your actions and being like, right, what can I do better now? And how can I do this differently next time? I think it's a great role model for them as well.
Definitely. So going back onto the sleep side of it for babies then, how can parents help their children adjust from going to maybe like a cot to a bed, or dropping naps, things like that? Are there any sort of specific things that can help sleep transitions for any age baby or child, I suppose?
So naps are a tricky one, because some babies, like I said, will nap beautifully and some don't. And then you get your nap transition. So when you look at the average sleep needs over your baby's first year of their life, they go from newborn which are around about 14 to 16 hours within a 24-hour period, to sort of 12 years. Hold on, I'm just going to 12 months to make sure I get these stats right, because just to about so newborn, 16, around about 16 hours within a 24-hour to about 14 hours. And those are only averages. So that doesn't mean every child is going to have those sleep needs. And that's the thing that makes it so hard with naps, because some children have higher sleep needs and some children have less sleep needs. And all we ever get given are these averages. Parents don't always realize that actually, yes, these averages are a good starting point, but I need to now work out what my child actually needs. Do they need to have like the full 14 hours over with the 24-hour period, or do they maybe need less? Maybe they only need 12 hours over the 24-hour period. And then that's going to impact how much time you give them to sleep during the day, because that's going to impact nighttime sleep. So I remember thinking all children sleep for 12 hours at night, which is a lie. It's, it can range from 10 to 12 hours. If you're lucky, if you've got a child with high sleep needs, they might do the 12 hours plus all their naps during the day. So it's constantly a juggle. So you're sort of making sure, you need to be aware of when these nap transitions happen. Make sure that you sort of know, you can kind of recognize the signs. For example, are they getting harder to put down for their nap? Are they fighting their naps? Are they having shorter naps? And then when bedtime comes, is that a struggle when it used to be fine? So if that's the case, just cut down. You might need to look at the afternoon nap. So it's usually that the third nap is the first one to go. And that's usually the easier one to sort of drop, because it just kind of falls by the wayside. And then you can just bring bedtimes forward by up to an hour to kind of, while they're kind of going through that transition, to sort of stop them becoming too overtired. And then that will help kind of prevent the early morning wake ups and sort of nighttime wake ups. And then it's that 2 to 1 nap that can be quite challenging, because some children will show around about 15 months that they show signs for it, but they're not fully ready till about 18 months. So that's a really tricky one. And then the last nap is also really hard, because some children by 2.5, they'll be like, no thanks, no more naps for me. And you're like, but you still need your nap. And then you sort of get into this real battle of trying to like get them to nap, because you're like, oh, I need you to nap, I need you to nap. And what I recommend is trying to let go of that anxiety and that control of the naps. And I hate naps. And I'm saying that because they're so individualized. I cannot say to you, your 8-month-old should be napping at this and this time and go to bed at this time, because that's not how it works. And like with that when they drop that last nap, it's a lot of give and take. It's a lot of being like, right, maybe today they need that nap. So if they're at home with you and they're not going to fall asleep at home, do you need to go jump in the car and have a really long drive for them to have their nap, just so you can kind of get it in? So like with Ollie, we're at that phase where he's dropping the nap, but he actually still needs it. So it's a real juggle. Like you're really juggling it. So you try and plan your journey time when he should be napping, because if he falls asleep during that time, you're like, yes, I've done this right. And then if he doesn't, you're like, okay, it's going to be a long day, because he's going to be really tired. And then they kind of go past tired. So naps are tricky. So if you are, as a parent, struggling with naps, you're not alone. They're really hard, because like I said, not all babies are textbooks, and they don't just fall into this beautiful sort of nap rhythm or napping schedule that you are led to believe that they will fall into. So if your little one isn't napping and you're pulling your hair out with naps, that's fine. But it is normal. You can go and find someone to help you and support you through with their naps. And then transitions from a cot to a bed. I would say hold off as long as possible. So I would keep them in a cot till around 3. Definitely not before 2.5. I would definitely try and hold off as long as possible until they're about 3. So there's no rush to kind of get it done because everyone else is doing it. Unless you've got a cot climber who's trying to climb out the cot, then you do need to like sort of transition them from health, like a health and safety perspective. But definitely try and get them in a sleeping bag, because that kind of stopping hoiking their legs over. Or you get like these sleep sacks. So if they don't like their feet covered, it's like a sleeping bag, but then they've got holes for their feet, and again that stops them from able to like climb over. But some children are like just masters of like escaping, so you will then have to kind of move them slowly into the cot bed. So having just the one side taken off, but that boundary means a lot of the time like bedtimes can then fall apart a bit because that physical boundary is not there keeping them in this room anymore. And it's only around about 2.5 that they actually understand the concept of staying in their room and staying in bed. So sometimes that's when bedtimes fall apart. So then you just need to kind of rethink how you help support them with their bedtimes. And you might have to stay with them while they fall asleep. And that's okay. Because also, again, around 2.5 is when they sort of go through a different like mental leap, which can then just be they can like change so much like within how they perceive the world, which can then really impact sleep. And again, this was so different. Like my daughter, I actually had to move her out of her cot bed at like, she was over 3. I was like, oh, I finally have to get her off it, like out. And she was fine. Within 2 nights, she was okay. She had got the whole concept. Ollie, completely different. He started climbing out at about 2, and there was nothing I could do to keep him in. So he had to come out of his bed. And then it was just like, excellent. Let's start like figuring out how to help them sleep. Transitioning from the cot to the bed, you can also role play it with the kids. Like that's one of the best ways that they learn how to sort of do something. So you can have like their favorite teddy or whatever, actually role play them, putting them to bed and letting them sort of sleep, putting them in bed and doing sort of a very short version of your bedtime routine with them. And then you sort of go back, you sort of leave the room and actually pretend you're doing your whole bedtime routine and saying good night. And then you leave the room and then you come back in and be like, look, well done. You stayed in bed, you slept in a big boy bed, and just sort of using that. And that's a great thing. Like role play is amazing for anything. So if you have if you're co-sleeping with your little one and you want to move away from it, role play is one of the best things you can do before you kind of make that transition. So really kind of doing that like role playing them with them, like in their room, make sure they're happy and comfortable in their room as well. Yeah, with anything like their sleep space, just make sure they really like it. And if you are going to a big girl or big boy bed, you can make it exciting. You can be like, oh, look, you've got this bed, and like get them to choose the sheets, like just get them to choose what pattern they want. And my daughter has 2 unicorn ones. My husband hates it. I was like, that doesn't matter. Like, it's not your bed.
Yeah.
But she loves it. She loves her unicorn pillow and her unicorn duvet cover and stuff. So it's just a lot of, how can you kind of connect with them, make them feel safe in that room space. But yeah, transitions can be hard if they're on the younger side of it. So just be prepared that it can be a bit of a challenge and that you're going to have to rethink your whole bedtime routine, which can happen with some little ones.
Lovely. Thank you. And do you have any advice for parents that are maybe they've sort of started in a program, a sleep method, something's working for them, and then something throws them off balance, like they need to move house, for example, or they're starting a new job, which is meaning that they're maybe thrown out of the routine? Or do you have any advice for them? And maybe if they've got multiple children where one is a sleeper, one isn't, or, one's getting up and down and the other one's trying to sleep. Do you have any advice for people that are maybe dealing with that?
So it can be really hard. And if you're moving house or going on holiday, have any big changes, I would not recommend implementing any changes within the sleep routine. Just keep it as it is until you're sort of settled into your new routine, because change is hard for us as adults to deal with. And now for children, it can also be quite a big thing for them to kind of get used to. And that's the same with like if your whole sort of routine and the whole family structure changes. So if you've got multiples, I would always try and at least start the bedtime routine together. But that is very dependent on ages. So if you've got a really big age gap, you can kind of have the elders, if you need them to come up with you, sit in their room, read, if they've got any homework to finish off, which I'm not a big fan of, but anyway, like I'd rather get them to read or just do like a relaxing activity, something that calms them down. So you still know where they are. And then you can do the bath time with your little one and do the bedtime with them. And it is hard, particularly when one's not sleeping and the other one is sleeping. And you're just going to have to be kind to yourself and you have to figure it out. There's no sort of, this is the answer for you. And with my 2, I've had to really, and it's hard. When Ollie was a newborn, it was so hard trying to do the bath time and have him. But I just had him in one of those, those Bjorn bouncy chairs. I had him in that. So he was in the bathroom with us and I had him in there. And then I was trying to encourage B not to want to be picked up. because he was still newborn, so his head was all floppy. So I had to carry him with both hands. So it's encouraging, like, oh, like racing with her or something, like just something, and trying to encourage her to want to get herself dressed and being like, oh, you know, you can help Ollie, show him how to do it. Or when he was then involved in the bedtime routine, I would ask her to get help with the nappy, putting on his clothes, so trying to involve her in some way. And it evolves, like as your child gets older, the bedtime routine will evolve as well. So now they are almost 3 and almost 5, and I bath them together. Then most of the time my husband's not with us, so then we'll kind of get them dressed, and then I'll read a story in either B's room or Ollie's room, where they each get to choose one. And then this is the bit that's a bit of a yo-yoing, where I'll have to go lie with Ollie first, and then I'll be like, right, I'll lie with him. So he's got a Tony box, so he's got his little stories. So I'll be like, right, I'm going to stay up until this part of the story, and then I'm going to go and check on your sister, and then I'll be back. So then you go lie with the other one, because you need them both to feel connected and have that cup filled up. And when my husband's here, we kind of just tag team, and then we'll do the bath together, and then we each take a child, and we try and swap with each other, so that you kind of have that one-on-one time with each of your children. But it's just working out a routine that works for you. And, you know, don't be scared for movement to be involved in those routines. So we used to do like either dinosaur stomping or marching. Like my kids love marching. So my husband used to be in the army, so he's been teaching them how to do salutes. So they love marching up the stairs, marching to the bedroom, and then saluting, or, you know, if they need to hop or bounce. And it also just gets that sort of the movement and helps them move. But it's really worth taking the time to work out a bedtime routine that works for you and your family. There's no one size fits all. And, you know, when you've got more than one child, it is hard. And it's just giving yourself a bit more time to get them into bed, and so that you are not stressed by the time they are all in bed. So it's just, again, just being kind. But I'm working on a bedtime routine workshop, where I will talk about sort of how you can connect with your little one, helping with the co-regulation, and then looking at sort of sensory activities are needed, and sort of how you can help construct and build your own bedtime routine that will help you connect with your little one. So that's a workshop I'm busy building on, which will be end of October, beginning of November time. I'm not quite settled on a date yet, but that is something that, you know, that everyone could benefit from, because you can take bits and bobs from it and work out what is a good bedtime routine for my children. Because a lot of the time when you hear advice, just let it sit with you and be like, oh, I like this advice. It feels good. And if it doesn't feel good, just let it go. You'll be like, right, that's not going to work. And a lot of the times as mums, we have like, there's this little voice in us, and you have someone saying you have to do it this way, or you have to try this. And you're like, no, I'm just not sure it's going to work. And then you try it anyway, just to see what will happen. And it goes exactly as you planned. And I know sometimes it can be the preconception, or it's going to go horribly wrong anyway. So why? I just know. But sometimes it just doesn't feel right. And if it doesn't feel right to you and you're not invested in it, then you're not going to be committed to it. So that's the same with all parenting advice. Just kind of see what feels right for you and take it or leave it.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mia. I really appreciate all of that advice. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I know you've mentioned your workshop that you've got coming up. So when we've got the link for that, when that's ready, we're more than happy to add that onto our community and on the show notes to advertise that for you. But if you've got any other links where people can maybe get in contact with you if they need any more advice, then please feel free to share them.
Yeah, so Instagram is where I generally hang out, and my handle is at Celebrate Sleep with Mia. And there you can find me. I'll share all my sleep tips. And there's also a link in my bio that you can I've already got a free bedtime routine guide that you can go and download. And it just gives you an idea of where you can get started. And I've also got an email list that you can join, which if you do join, you'll be the first ones to find out about the bedtime routine workshop, and with some exclusive sort of offers in there as well for anyone. But yeah, Instagram is where I hang out. So come in there, you can DM me, ask me any questions or anything like that. I'd be happy to sort of answer and connect with you there.
Perfect. Thank you again, Mia, for coming on. We really appreciate it. And like I say, I will put all of Mia's links in the show notes, and we will add that workshop that she's got coming up once that's released as well. So thank you again for coming on, and we will see everyone for the next episode of For All Stages and Ages. Thank you very much.